Welcome to Rock the Life, a podcast for fans, by fans. And Amy, what do we have going on for today's show?
We have another fun guest for everybody today. This gentleman has his own podcast and will be sharing stories with us that he has heard straight from various horses' mouths. Can we say it that way? I don't know. But Jeremy has the Hair Metal Rules podcast and has talked to artist upon artist upon artist from the 80s. And
I'm going to say, Jeremy, is when we talk about a podcast for fans, by fans, Jeremy is for sure a fan
yeah,
of
yes, he is.
80s music, rock metal, and he is keeping it alive and love talking to a fellow massive fan.
Yep, that's the truth. With that, you guys, here's Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing great. First, I want to start with thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Amy and I have had so much fun listening to your podcast and the bands you talk about, the things you do. We're right there with you. We're I think all about the same age and we love the same things. So
I feel like a celebrity. I told my
you
wife this
are.
morning. I said, hey, I'm actually gonna be on someone else's podcast. I'm thrilled.
Well, no, I mean, listening to you, I think you're perfect to have. Okay, so let's see. Your podcast is on hair metal. Take us back to when did it all start with your love of hair metal bands?
I started listening to hair metal in about 10th grade, so I would say 85, 86. And a friend of mine, we would alternate driving to school. Like I say, I was listening to Duran Duran, Aha, Cutting Crew, 80s radio, whatever the radio was playing. And he had the Night Songs cassette from Cinderella, and he put it in, and I listened to it and heard the first song, which is Night Songs, and I I loved it from then on out, and I never looked back from there. And all these years later, that's all I listen to.
Have you had a chance to see Cinderella?
I did not get to see Cinderella because I know back in high school it was Cinderella, Brittany Fox, and one other band. I want to say maybe Winger or something that came through, but I happened to be sick at the time and didn't get to go. But no, the only closest thing is Tom Kiefer was at M3 one time. That's the closest thing to Cinderella I've gotten. So
Well, I'm actually, now that you said that, I'm going to skip around a little bit with what I wanted to talk to you about. And on your podcast, you talk about M3. I've actually had to look it up because I was so excited at seeing the bands play. And I know that it's been going on for about 15 years. How many times have you explain what M3 is and tell us how many times you've been?
M3 is just a 3-day rock festival of 80s hair metal. They have some newer ones in there. Like one year, there's a harder band of ladies called Burning Witches, and they sound a lot like Iron Maiden. And they had and there's a tribute band that's all female called the Iron Maidens, and they play all. But anyway, it's a 3-day rock festival, and it's 10 bands each day, one band right after another. There's maybe a 30-minute break in between it, but anybody you can think of has actually pretty much played at M3.
Wow.
And how many times have you gone to M3?
We've gone 3 times so far. We're going to go again this year.
I was actually peeking on the website to see who was playing, and I noticed the bands. They haven't announced yet who's playing.
They usually announce around January because, of course, we follow them on Instagram, and they'll put coming soon, blah, 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 keep you waiting. But it's a 2-day festival now, but they still cram as many bands as they possibly can in there.
Who has been in this, let's say this last few years, who's been your who are you most excited to see perform?
In the last couple of years, I actually saw Vane, which was the original members of Vane. That was
Wow.
great. Davey Vane's got a voice. When you hear it, you know exactly who it is by just the way he sings.
Gotta beat the bullet.
Leatherwolf was a band that I always Yeah, he beat the bullet, right? Yeah, Secrets,
Mm-hmm.
Feel the Fever of 1,000.
Hundreds of
That
Days, yep.
that first No Respect album is good from start to finish. But a Leather Wolf, I got to see them. Queensryche has been there a couple of times, and Queensryche is like my all-time favorite '80s hair metal band, just because I think Operation Mindcrime is one of the greatest albums ever, and I've worn out many treble tracks on that CD in my car in high school with a kicker box and an amp and all that kind of good stuff. I saw Cold Sweat there last year, and my podcast that I just posted today is Roy Cathy, the lead singer of Cold Sweat. But just so many bands. Pretty Boy Floyd. I never saw
Yeah.
Pretty Boy Floyd before. Yngwie Malmsteen. I have
Ingve.
thought one of the most amazing guitar players ever, and he went out there and played, and the guy can actually drop a guitar pick and kick it with his heel, and it'll go out in the crowd. I was really amazed at how he could kick guitar picks through the crowd. But
Wow.
just so many people we've got to see there. It's great.
No, that
Sounds
is one
amazing.
I'll sit there talking about. I've heard about Rocklahoma, and now I'm all about getting myself to M3 at some point because
Mm-hmm.
it sounds so exciting.
It sounds
You seriously
amazing.
need to go to M3. It's it's in a nice place. It's just a small venue. They have grass at the top, but it's a whole lot of fun, let me tell you.
Well, Jeremy, after next year's 2025, we're going to bring you back because I want to do a full review and recap of
Sure, no
so
problem.
I can ask you about all our favorite bands. Okay,
Yes.
and from M3, have you met some of the bands?
Actually, you told me to show you some pictures, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hold on one second. This is from the first year we went to M3. I
Oh,
met Tammy Down
Mm-hmm.
from Faster
Faster
Pussycat,
Pussy.
and he signed my ticket stub. And here's Steve Summers from Pretty Boy Floyd. And they signed my ticket stub here. And I have some more photos floating around to original members of Vane. They were just like
Mm-hmm.
standing up drinking, actually drinking a cup of coffee the second year we went, because there was a hurricane, a tropical depression that came up through Maryland, and it was about 40 degrees all weekend long. We about froze to death, but they were standing up there drinking coffee. And Heaven's Edge has always have been a huge band that I liked, and Reggie Wu is the guitar player, and Mark Evans is the lead singer. They were up at the top of the podium, and I got my stadium, and I got my picture taken with them. Steve Blaze from Lillian Axe, they played one year. I got to see him and take my picture with him, but those guys actually they'll come up through the crowd when they're not playing, because some of them, if you look around, they're sitting in seats that are unoccupied, just watching the other
They're just
bands play instead of they're
Right.
staying on the stage where it's so not loud. But you get to see it. It's a lot of fun. It's great.
I
Sounds
can't wait
amazing.
to I can't wait to hear more about it. Well, okay, so you also brought up a band I want to talk about. Tell me about Lillian Axe and when did you first start listening to Lillian Axe?
I first started listening to Lillian Axe in high school, and the reason why I started listening to them is they just looked so cool, because they were one of the first hair metal bands that actually wore the bandana tied around their head with their hair, around. And Steve
Yeah.
Blaze, I heard Steve Blaze. He's such a great guitar player. Show a Little Love came on the Headbangers Ball, MTV, and on Saturday night. But anyway, Show a Little Love came on there, and like I say, I just always liked them. And a few years back, we were going. My wife's from Covington, Louisiana, so she's a raging Cajun, and
Okay.
we went to Mardi Gras. And ladies, if you've never been to Mardi Gras before, that's something I suggest you go do.
Okay, I'm adding to my bucket list. So yes, I've never been. I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready for that too. Okay.
I haven't been either.
I have never had so much fun getting plastic beads thrown at me.
Did you lift your
It's
shirt?
no, well, if I lifted my shirt, they looked the other way and showed the other people. I kind of didn't want to keep them away, but anyway, we were going down there, and I had been messaging Steve on Instagram. I just wanted his address so I could mail something to him to get autographed. But, I kept messing with him and messing with him. I'm the kind of person that these people I try to communicate with, after about the third time, you're a pest.
Fair enough.
My third message I usually give people is, I completely understand if you don't, anyway. But I put, Steve, please show a little love and give me your address so I can mail you something. So he hit me back on there, gave me his address, and I told him we were coming to Mardi Gras. And he actually, gave me his phone number and all. But when we got there, my wife's family all met at an Italian restaurant. We walked in to eat, and I know what Steve looks like. Steve doesn't look like he did back in the '80s. Steve's got a beard, and he's plumped up a little bit, like I have over the years. But anyway, we walked in the restaurant, and out the corner of my eye, I see this guy sitting here with his family eating. And I told my wife, I said, "There's Steve Blaze right there." She's like, "We don't need to bother him while he was eating," which I wouldn't have done anyway. So I told her, I said, "Well, on our way out, if he's still there, I just want to fist bump him and just say, hey, man, I've been a big fan. I love your music. Thank you for." And anyway, he got up to walk out to leave. And I told my wife, I was like, "He's walking out the door." She's like, "Well, go talk to him." So I walked outside and I shook his hand and told him, "I'm the guy you're talking to on Instagram." And he was so nice. He gave me a big hug and said, "Hey, man, you're relentless." He's like, "But I eventually gave in, and here we are now." And he said, "If you guys are around tomorrow, text me and I'll meet you somewhere." So we texted him, and he met us in his hometown. He met us at Starbucks and came in, and we drank coffee with him, and he brought me some autographed pictures. But I was so in awe of seeing him. I'm sitting here, like I can't say anything, which I know that sounds silly being 53 years old, but people that you've followed all your life, you never expect to run into them. And you're like, what do I do now? But anyway, luckily my wife, she's a talker. So she talked to him, and he, told so many stories about when they were being on the road and,
Oh, that's awesome.
touring with Bullet Boys and touring with Pretty Boy Floyd, actually. And just the nicest guy. So over the years since then, anywhere he's ever went, he'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm close to you if you want to make the 3-hour trip." And he always goes out of his way to, you know, talk to us and stand with us, or, "Hey, come here, let me introduce you to this guy." Or, because last time I saw him, he's like, "Come here, I want to introduce you to somebody." And it was Jason McMaster from Dangerous Toys. They were just standing around, hanging around, talking. I'm diverse with hair metal guys. I love harder stuff. I love bubblegum metal. I love glam metal. I love,
Us too.
I love,
Yep.
I love
Yeah.
King Diamond. I love Iron Maiden. I love
I forgot about King
Fate's
Diamond.
Warnings. Yeah, Kent, that Kent, he's something else. But anyway, that's how I met Steve Blaze. I actually have his phone number on my phone, and I'll just text him from time to time just to say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And he was nice if he did my podcast.
I
And
heard that.
we just talked about he's not a real talker, but he's nice. He's very into what he's trying to do, and he wants to leave the show a little love behind, because I know a lot of these artists, they keep making music and music, but unfortunately, what you remember them by and what you want to hear is stuff you knew from the '80s, stuff they played a bazillion times, and I get that. So, but that's my Steve's a good guy. I think the world of him. He's all right.
Of all the people you've interviewed on your podcast, you've interviewed some great people. Who stands out to you? Who were you most excited to interview?
I interviewed Michael Oliveri, the lead singer for Leatherwolf. And
Okay.
Leatherwolf was a big deal in Huntington Beach, California back in the day. And I think because I never thought he would even do it, because some of these people I talk to, I try to go Google and see if they've ever done interviews, and I listen to them because I want to know I don't want to be that guy that's like, okay, I'm gonna ask 15 different questions, but he's already been asked those same 15 different questions, you know. But anyway, it was just neat when he came on, and like I say, he's sitting in a cabana in his backyard. He's got his dog beside him. He's drinking a big tall Modelo beer, just laid back, and just him, you know, telling me. I love for these guys just to tell me stories. I don't want to know what, you know. I don't want to know what he ate for breakfast. I don't want to know, you know, did his kids playing football or whatever. Just tell me stories about the days of the Sunset Strip, and him just telling me that Poison was their biggest nemesis. You wouldn't think that because you listen to Poison and you listen to Leatherwolf, and that's two entirely
Two
different
different. Mhm.
genre sounds. But you know, he said that the drummer for Poison,
Ricky
Ricky Rock,
Rocket.
was very good at climbing light poles, and they would go to the highest point they possibly could go to put a Poison sign because somebody was going to come behind them and tear it down or put something over it. So they had a friend that had worked for the telephone company, and they would take a boom truck out there and get in the boom truck and go just as high as the boom truck would go to put their sign above Poison sign. Just
That's
hearing things like that,
fantastic.
just hearing things like that thrill me. Uh, I'm I'm trying to get Davey Vane to do the podcast, but I know he's a very personal person, and I'm working on it. But to get him to talk to me would be something else. But if I don't, I'm still a huge Vane fan. But
So
you
would
Yeah.
know,
we.
Michael Oliveri was a great interview. Roy Cathy was great because I just like Roy. He's just a country boy that's from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, a military town, and all of a sudden he told me if on the podcast he's like, you know, I get a call from Mark Ferrari, which is, you know, played in Kiel.
Mm-hmm.
I get a call from Mark Ferrari. He's like, I'm picking you up. Go to RDU Airport. Here's a ticket. I'll pick you up. And he said, you know, Mark Ferrari picks me up and takes me to the Whiskey A Go Go on a Friday night, and it's slammed full of people in the heyday.
Mm-hmm.
Takes me to the bar and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'll be right back. There's a girl I need to meet upstairs at the other bar and tell her something. I'll be back." And he's like, "I'm a guy from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, country boy, North Carolina guy, and I'm right in the middle of the Whiskey A Go Go." And he's like, "Wow, this is incredible." And the cool thing about Roy, you know, I met Roy when I was about 17
Oh,
at a place
Wow.
called the Flaming Mug in Fayetteville, and that was during the heyday of the hair metal. And in my high school, there were some guys that I hung out with. They had a band called Aces Wild, and we all decided to go to the Flaming Mug and see Cold Sweat and Sabotage. So, needless to say, we're just standing there, and Rory Cathy's mom is just happens to be standing beside me, and she's like, have you guys ever met Roy?" I'm like, "No, I've never met anybody before. I'm only 17 years old, but I like this band." She's like, "Well, do you want to meet Roy?" So she takes
Wow.
us out the back entrance, and their tour bus is there. So we actually get up on the tour bus, and Roy's sitting in there, and he's, you know, drinking a soda, and he's just so nice. And back then, I wish I'd have had an iPhone, but you didn't
yeah,
carry
seriously.
around, yeah, you didn't carry around a portable camera in your pocket to take pictures. But you know, just
Unless you're
talking to him.
Katya. Unless you're Katya, you did.
Well, as a guy, you don't think about carrying around a,
That's
you know,
exactly right.
Polaroid in your pocket.
You
But
didn't
while
have
we
your
were
purse
on
with you. Yeah.
But while we were on there, Mark Ferrari walks out of the back, walks out of the shower with a towel wrapped around his waist, and he's like, you know, "What's up, guys?" And it's just stuff like that's the first time I ever met Roy, you know, at the
That's
Flaming Mug. And the
awesome.
Flaming Mug was just a small club, and they had a twin sister to it in Raleigh called the Switch. And I didn't know it, but Roy told me, he's like, you know, that was a major hub to stop at for all hair metal bands back in the
Mm.
day, because you walk in that club and there's a white wall, and everybody that walked in there had signed that wall. And the men's room, the back wall of the men's room, everybody had signed that men's room wall over the years. And I would love to, have that sheetrock, and
Right.
just
Right.
yeah, just all the people that had came through there back in the day, and big name people, Doc and Rat, Warrant, Poison, anybody and everybody that was a stop when they weren't doing a major tour. I mean, a big stadium or whatever, that they would stop there and play.
Is the club still open?
It's still open, but now it's a country club where they do
Oh,
line
okay.
dancing and
I
stuff
was gonna
like
say
that.
line
So,
dancing.
yep.
So
That,
being from North Carolina, um, what was the music scene like growing up? Because I know there's a few North Carolina bands, and were you into them?
yeah, okay. The North Carolina band that I know of that you're speaking of will be Firehouse.
Oh, what do you know? Yes.
No, right, wow. But yes, I always liked Firehouse. I thought Firehouse didn't get the recognition that they deserved.
I
I
agree.
classify them. They were big, yes, but I classify them as one of the more underrated because they had such a great sound, such a radio friendly. Their first album, radio friendly, you know, pop metal sound, but they were they just like I said, I just love their music. Their second album was they went a little bit heavier on. I liked it even more. I saw Firehouse and Tesla when their second album, Hold Your Fire, came out, and they played it, and I had to go out and buy the CD after I saw them in concert. But the scene around here in high school, you guys know what I'm talking about. You had cliques.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you still had the people that listened to '80s pop. You had the folks that listened to like The Cure, music, Genesis, music like that. But just the metal scene, it was typical concerts that came by. You'd go to it, you'd buy your T-shirt. That was your badge of honor
Yeah.
on Monday
Yeah.
morning when you went to school. You knew Rat was in town Saturday night because there was 55, 60 people walking around with a dancing undercover T-shirt the next day, or a Poison. Open up and say, that was the tour that came through. But I had friends that, like I talk about, Guy and a few others. They were really, really good, and they played just small little places in Sanford that they could go play. But Guy still plays guitar. He's a guitar teacher, and he's still in Fayetteville and still plays music. But they had the hair, and their lead singer could belt them out. Like if you listen to TNT, Tony Harnell, he can get way up there, and that's the way Rush Ganey could play. But it was fun. It was so great growing up in the '80s, growing up in that time. Just the music you had, you had kids listening to rap music. You had kids listening to hair metal music, and like I say, you had the kids that listened to. You still had your Duran Durans and your
Yeah.
Depeche Modes and that kind of thing. But it was a whole lot of fun just living in this era and listening to this music because you didn't get into trouble. It wasn't about
That's true.
trouble. It was
Yeah.
about buying a tape, buying a new Rat tape, and putting it in your radio and turning it as loud as you could. And there was a strip you could cruise in Sanford, and there was like hundreds of kids from my high school. All you did was rode up and down a strip at a strip mall, or you sat on top of a car and you listened to music. I think that's what I enjoyed so much about it.
Well, I love your stories on your podcast. How long have you been doing your podcast?
I started I started doing the podcast maybe a year and a half ago, and
Okay.
I had been talking about it, and my wife's like, "Just go do it." Just and the first one was basically about me and a lot of the stuff I'm telling you here. and I literally typed it out page after page and printed it out and practiced looking at a picture on the wall and talking to a picture on the wall. And I'm telling you, that's hard to do. I typed out if you listen to my first podcast, everybody said, you sound just like Paul Harvey. You got such a great Southern accent.
You
You're
do.
real laid back and you sound just like Paul Harvey. But I started doing them about a year and a half ago and just started messaging people on Instagram that I always liked. And I started talking to a guy on Instagram. His name is Justin Saney. He's with a band called Cruella de Vil. And he lived in Hollywood. His uncle was the president of Hustler magazine, Larry Flint.
Oh,
And he lived in Larry Flint's mansion, and that's where he grew up.
oh my.
And Larry Flint's wife was but there was nothing like that going on in the mansion, that all the pictures taken and all was, I'm sure, somewhere else. But, his wife was really into these bands. And when he was 10, 11, 12, she took him on the Sunset Strip and he met, Motley Crue when they were nobody. He said, one time they had a party at the house and these four guys walked in and their names were Vince Neil, Tommy,
Nikki and Mick.
and they were there and it was a big party. And like 3 days later, Larry Flint's wife finally told him, like, guys, you got to go. But
I stayed for 3 days.
right.
It's probably because they didn't have anywhere else to go.
I know, right? They didn't have nowhere else to go. Their house was probably needing to be fumigated from what I see on the Dirt movie. But I talked to him, and Mark Striegel is my favorite satellite radio host on Hair Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to meet Mark. When we went to M3 last time, I told my wife, I got to meet Mark Striegel. And we would go to church on Sunday morning, and Striegel's always on Saturdays and Sundays. And he was playing music, and I was sending him a message, sitting in the church parking lot, waiting to go listen to the preacher, listen to you on Hair Nation ahead of time. And he would always say something back. And sure enough, we were in line the second day, and he comes walking out with his portable microphone. And he's like, hey, I'm Mark Striegel from Satellite Radio. Anybody want to do an interview? I'm like, I would. And I told him who I was, and he's like, yeah, I remember you sending me that on Hair Nation. And he interviewed me, and they played a little blip of it. Every now and then, if you listen to Hair Nation, it'll say, I'm Jeremy Thomas. I'm from Holly Springs, North Carolina, and I listen to Hair Nation on my app on my phone or whatever. But just I wanted to meet Mark Striegel. Out of all the people that were there, I wanted to meet him, and I got to meet him. And he said, tell me where you're sitting and I'll bring you something. He brought me a Hair Nation t-shirt, and
nice.
I communicate with him a lot online. But just asking people nicely, would they do the podcast, and just being nervous as all get up and researching online the top 100 podcast questions. And I would highlight them. What would you tell your younger self now, or if you were a superhero, what superpower would you like to have? And I'm thinking to myself, no, don't do this. Just talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your influences. Who did you listen to when you were younger? And I know, when I was talking to you guys, I was telling my wife about it. I said, I never really thought about everything about their podcast until they kind of explained it to me. You want to talk to the artist. Who were you a fan of?
Exactly.
Who did you meet? And that's a great point of view to go from. Mine's from, I've been a fan all this time. I'm fascinated with the Sunset Strip. Tell me stories. Tell me stories that I'm not seeing on television that's been edited. You don't have to tell me nothing nasty or gross, but just tell me what it was like to have to, sleep in the back, sleep in the back, sleep on somebody's floor.
The
don't take
story
this
from
wrong.
XYZ was like, yeah, the stories you were getting out from, it was amazing. Sleeping at, renting the back of people's cars to sleep
Yeah,
in.
but
Whoa.
don't please don't take this the wrong way. And the ladies that hung out on the Sunset Strip, the fans that you see like on Decline of Western Civilization, if it wasn't for people like that, these bands would have never made anything because a credit to the ladies, they're the ones that bought them clothes.
Yep.
They bought them
Fed them.
food. You know, I mean, and that's another thing. That's another thing. I never really looked at it that way.
Yeah.
They're not really. They weren't necessarily groupies. They were a form of survival for
Yeah.
these guys.
I ever told this story. When I was in high school, I had a lady that I babysat for, and she grew up or went through all of that. She was probably 28 when I was 17. So, uh, and turns out that she helped bring poison up in terms of providing those things. And on the Open Up and Say Ah album, on one of the album covers, there's the band around a pool, Brett's in a pool, and there's a couple of girls with their hands covering their chests. That was the lady. One of
Right.
those girls was the lady I was babysitting for.
Oh wow,
But yeah, and I've
that's
never,
awesome.
like, Katya, I don't even know if I brought that up to you, but she was so far removed from
I've never
that
heard that.
yeah, sweetest little girl. It was I won't say the little girl's name even though she's in my mind, but yeah, I mean, and it was just stories like that where it's like, no, he used to come over and sleep on my couch, or no, we'd go out after the show and it's the first thing they'd eaten in 2 days, and that kind of stuff. Yep, you're absolutely right.
But those guys, they lived a hard life. I always looked at it from the wrong way. I always looked at it from, this band's climbing over this band's back, stabbing each other in the back. But to hear these guys talk, it was a tough life, and your goal was to get a record deal if you could, but
Yeah.
you did it because you loved doing it, because you loved playing music. And the Whiskey a Go Go or Grizzari's, they would stack tickets of 5 and 6 bands deep. The band that really, really wasn't anybody played first,
Yeah.
and then you would get a Vein, or you would get a Warrant or a Leather Wolf. That would be, but if somebody's amp blew out, the other band's like, hey, here, get it plugged in, keep going. They helped each other out. Then there were bands out there that were vindictive, that wanted to see people not succeed. I understand that, but I think the whole Sunset Strip, I call it a movement. I call it like the 70s was a
Yeah.
love and
Mm-hmm.
peace movement. But anyway, the whole hair metal movement was we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
We're going to play loud music.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to grow our hair out. We're going to see how much lipstick we can put on, or we're going to see how big our hair is going to get. And it drove people crazy to see thousands and thousands of people on the street outside all these clubs and bands handing out flyers. I would have loved to experience that. I would have loved to have seen it.
Well, I think also what you're doing is keeping the movement alive. And places
Mm-hmm.
like M3 and these other shows, the brotherhoods are coming back and sisterhoods
Yeah.
with it, right? I mean, you see that camaraderie. You see the bands like moving into each other's bands when they have to step in. It's still
Sure.
going on, right? And I love that we get to keep reliving it and experience it just at a different age in our lives now.
But that's what I love so much about music. Just
Absolutely.
listening to something in it, where you were and how you were feeling. And I didn't have to worry about paying bills. I didn't have to worry about the cat getting sick, or paying car insurance, or homeowners insurance. All I did was just listen to music and
Amen.
played air guitar, and wished I was one of those guys. You know what I mean?
Well, you're in the industry now. You're keeping it alive, and that's
I'm
what,
trying. I'm trying to.
Right?
Trust me, I'm trying to.
you're one of
I
the
do
guys
have.
now.
I was going to show you on here.
Oh,
There's
please.
Joey Allen from
Oh,
Warrant.
Aw.
There's Bobby Blotzer from Rat.
Mm-hmm.
There's the drummer for Winger.
there's
Mm-hmm.
that is great how you framed that.
That's
I just
awesome.
sent them index cards, and I just printed out pictures, and I do have your friend here.
That's awesome.
Your I'll show you one more thing. All right, here's the last one I'll show you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Here's your buddy, Bill Laverty,
Yep.
Oh.
Liberty
Yep.
Firehouse.
Yep.
This is the Dead Daisies. It's got Doug
The
Aldridge
dead
in it.
daisies.
Yep.
Playwood
Yep.
Lion. Who else do we have here? This is the bass player for Lynch Mob
Mm-hmm.
on both of these. Silent Rage was one of my favorite bands back in the day. That's the
Mm-hmm.
bass player. Here's Andy Timmons from Danger Danger.
Yep.
I would just print, if I didn't have a CD cover, I would print it out on my printer, just a CD
Yep.
cover, and fold it and send it to them. And they would sing guitar picks, or a lot of them
That's
that I
awesome.
have actually, I don't have it in here, but a lot of them have actually. I wrote to the lead singer of Spread Eagle. His name is Ray West, and Spread Eagle was a little bit harder, kind of a faster Pussycat sound.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just told him how much I loved his music, and he sent me small actual Polaroids that was taken at their very first video shoot. Pictures of them backstage.
Wonderful.
Wrote me a personal letter just saying thank you
Wow.
for knowing who I am and remembering me, and for digging my music. But I'm just a hair
Aw.
metal guy. I love it.
And
You
you bring
That's
out, I think
awesome.
you listening to your podcast, you bring out the best in people. So I think this is, you're doing well. I'm looking at, I could speak to you forever, and I think we're going
Mm-hmm.
to have more shows with you on. But tell us where people can connect with you, where to watch your podcast, how to message
Well,
you.
I'm on I'm on Instagram. It's hair_metal_rules on Instagram. I'm at hair.metal.rules on YouTube and X, and I'm Hair Metal Rules on Facebook. I don't get on Facebook very often.
Same.
I get on
Okay,
Facebook to try to find people. You'd be surprised who you can
same.
find on Facebook.
Yeah,
But I've just I do have a YouTube channel which I'm playing with, trying to make it look nice. So I'm still working that out, but I do have two videos that I uploaded on YouTube. I uploaded one this morning with Roy Cathy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nothing fancy. It's just
Mm-hmm.
I I go right in and just start talking to people. But that's where you can
fantastic.
find me. If you can follow me on YouTube, just like with you guys,
I will
Mm-hmm.
do that.
following somebody on YouTube, giving
Like and
thumbs
subscribe.
up on YouTube. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Subscribe. That means a great deal, because I will tell
Mm-hmm.
you, if you get recognized on YouTube, that's pretty much your journey to something bigger. I ain't looking to be riding around in a limousine. I'm not
Right.
looking to be, my goal is to be able to have me a table at the Rock and Pod Expo in Nashville every year, which is one of the biggest podcasting platforms you can actually represent. You get a table. I want people to, and ladies, I wish you the same luck. Trust me. You guys, I like you guys. You guys are so nice. You're great. I like your podcast. We're
Thank you.
we're we're two pieces of bread, but we got a little bit different in the
Yep.
middle. But it's
Yep.
all the same thing. But anyway, I would love to be at the Rock and Pod Expo, and everybody walks by. It's like, God, I love your podcast. Can I please have a sticker? Mention me on your podcast next time. Here, blah blah blah. That's my goal. That's
Mm-hmm.
basically all I want.
Oh,
I want people to
you're
just listen to
you're
it and
gonna get
enjoy it.
there. Yeah.
Just enjoy it. And I hope I don't run out of people. I have quite a few. You guys talk to the lead singer for Trickster. Pete.
Pete Lawrence. Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to talk to Mark Gus, the
I
drummer.
heard that. Yes, that was
I do,
fun.
I do have an interview with PJ Farley that I still have to put up, and he's pretty cool. He's just sitting there like this with a toboggan on his head, because and he doesn't have that big hair anymore.
There's an
Look at
old
you!
picture of us with PJ.
Look at you! Wow, that's all right.
Yeah.
Just
Aim and I.
talking to PJ, and I think one of the more obscure people that I talked to was Jaron from Lynch Mob.
Yeah.
He's the nicest fella. I met him before, and he remembered who I was because I mentioned blah blah. He's like, because I had been trying to get an autographed picture of him, and he kept going on tour, this, that, and the other. And he finally sent me a message on Instagram. It's like, dude, I am not ignoring you. I will get it
Aw.
out. Federal Express. I said, no, you don't have to send it Federal Express. Just send me something. He sent me a picture and some pics. But anyway, him playing with Lynch Mob on their farewell tour, playing with George Lynch, who's a legend,
Legendary.
and then being able to play with Heaven's Edge, which was an underrated. If you guys have never heard Heaven's Edge, an underrated band, they're so good. And he's playing bass for them. He's doing dual roles and he's doing his own thing. But I'm just glad these guys are still out there playing this music and playing what people want to hear. I'm glad there's kind of a resurgence of this music, and people like us that love it and want to hear fans' stories. And I want to hear, dude, what kind of car did you sleep in the back of? How long did you have to do that?
Yeah.
When they did bring you food, did you get tired of eating pizza? What was Gregarious like? What was it like playing the being on the stage at the Whiskey a Go Go? Just tell me all about it. And
I want to hear the stories too. Yeah, it is. No, it is so fun to remember it, to think back, to hear the stories and not let the stories go away. Right. We have to memorialize them. That would be great.
these guys enjoy talking about it, because so I know you got to go in. I'm a talker. I apologize, but
No, I love
a lot of these guys, they're kind of hesitant to talk because whatever band they were in, there was conflict. I hate this guy. I don't care that you hated him. That ain't what I'm interested in. Tell me about what it was like meeting all the guys, what it was like getting signed to a record contract. What was it like going, like, per se, out on tour with Kiss your first time, or, Ted Nugent the first time?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me what that was about. I could care less who you're fighting with. That's none of my business. That's between you and him.
Yeah, I want to hear. Yeah, exactly.
You guys
No,
are great.
That's awesome.
so are you, Jeremy. No, I look forward to, like, I'll see you at M3. We'll be at Rock and Pod. We'll go to Hollywood together.
Seriously,
Yep.
look up.
I
I don't know
would.
if you have, but look up Rockin' Pod. It's great. There's a lot of artists there. Like I said, the first year we went, Steve Blaze, Steve Rochelle from Tough, Tony Harnell was there. Pretty much all of Keel was there. The guitar player from Vane was there. And they're just there just to talk to you. You walk right up to them, talk to them, and get your picture made with them. And Ricky Rockman was there from Headbangers Ball. People are selling albums, and people are selling concert T-shirts, and it's a whole lot of fun, ladies. You need
Well,
to
it's
get out there.
something more to look forward to.
Yep.
Go to Rockin' Pod. Go to M3. I'm telling you, take a trip to M3, and there's hotels really close to there. And I will say one thing: there's outside of M3 on Friday night. There's a Facebook group, the M3 Rock Festival Facebook group. They have a band out there. They play anything you can imagine. And we went out there one year and they were playing in the rain. Just a bunch of guys that probably worked their butts off all week long at a mundane job. But they get out there and they were playing, and people are passing out stickers and they have food. Just a nice
No, it sounds
community.
perfect. It sounds perfect.
Well, ladies, I know you got to go. I enjoyed it so much.
So did I. Look forward to the next one with you too, Jeremy. Yeah.
Anytime. And in turn, I will see you guys
Yep.
on my podcast.
I can't wait.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well, thank you
Jeremy.
so much.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
I totally want to go to Rockin' Pod, and
No,
that's
it was
yeah.
okay, Amy. He just, I mean, I could spend hours talking to him too. I
Mhm. Mhm.
absolutely adore him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, here we are at the end of another one.
Well,
Yeah,
I
really.
want to give a big thank you to Jeremy and his Hair Metal Rules podcast. We have had so much
So
fun
fun.
listening to him. And again, love that what he's doing, keeping the music
Mhm.
alive. He is so positive. He is so easy to talk to. And
Mhm.
I look forward to hearing him more. And I encourage everyone to check him out.
Yep, definitely. Genuine guy. Loved it. Loved it. So, as for Rock the Life, don't forget to, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can give us a follow or a rating if you're listening on any of the streaming services. We are on Instagram and TikTok now, and Threads at Rock the Life Girl, and Facebook, we are Rock the Life. We also have merch. Don't forget, we have a couple of, and I'm getting pictures of people wearing their shirts. So don't forget, get your shirt, send me a picture via Instagram or wherever, and we'll put you in the ad for the merch and or the promo for the merch. And oh, if you have a story to tell, make sure you send us an email at amy.rockthelife@outlook.com. And I think is that the business? That's all the business, right?
That's it. Aim, great episode. Love seeing you.
Yeah, so much
And
fun. Yeah.
until next time.
Yep.
Okay.
Rock the life.
Bye. Don't forget,
Bye. Love you. Yep.
rock
Yeah.
the
Oh, we
life.
forgot that part. Yep. Rock the life. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.